Oh, soap. Oh, finances. Finances. Oh, my goodness. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, Get Up and Go Challenge 5, Day 12. Today we're going to talk about the O in our soap framework. My soap's looking pretty shoddy. I think I might have to get a new bar. But we're going to talk about O with respect to the financial aspects of our life. Remember those 7 areas and aspects of our life? Oh, throwing papers on the floor every day. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, and contribution. And today and for the next couple of days, we're going to continue breaking down the SOAP framework, S-O-A-P, day by day, and finding and applying a tool for each of those letters in our acronym to make sure that we're understanding, having a bunch of different ways of actually accessing it so we can find the ones that work best for you. Now, today is one of my favorite days because it's all about possibility. It's all about infinite possibility and infinite opportunities. And we forget so often in our lives, especially during a pandemic, especially during COVID, we feel like we're locked down and closed up and stuck, and that there's so many more things outside of our control than are inside of our control, that we sometimes freeze up. And we talked about, how we tend to naturally react to change or challenges. And I think it's definitely magnified and showing in our way of dealing with challenges, especially during times of high stress, high change, high outside influence. And COVID is no exception. We've had some crazy things going on in my area. We just had a 10 p.m. curfew implemented in our little community because I think I mentioned the stabbings we had the other day. And it turns out that one was the person that died. It's first-degree murder. It was an absolutely heinous crime. I don't really go out that much after 10, so it doesn't affect me, but it does affect a lot of people that I know and love and care about. So we'll figure it out. It's only for a few weeks, so we'll figure it out, just like we figured out absolutely everything else during the pandemic. So, financial O. Yesterday, I shared that my financial story or situation is that I want to, and whenever I want to do a new project, instead of taking the money out of existing funds, I always attempt, and I pretty much have been successful at creating that money in another way, so I don't have to take it from existing resources or existing operating expenses and things. So if I want to do a big project or want to do something different in my business, I tell myself, okay, if it's going to cost me $100,000 a year to do this, I need to find a way to come up with that $100,000 a year without taking it out of existing operating expenses. So I want to make $5,000 a month to cover the cost and help me get help for the upcoming early 2021 Challenge Summit. Instead of having to do it all myself like I did the last one, I want to actually have resources and people and help doing it. And I figure just a rough estimate, that's going to cost $5K a month, right? Not just $5K one-time deal, $5K a month recurring, so that we can have the support and the resources that will back up that particular summit, that event. So how am I going to do that? Well, that's where the O comes in. O is all about options, right? Choices, ideas, options, solutions, brainstorming, alternatives, whatever word you choose to use. I use options because it helped me spell soap. So options. So we've got the story, the situation is the S. O is options. What else is possible, right? So our tool today is brainstorming. Why? Because brainstorming is one of my very favorite go-to tools of all time. We use it. Anybody can use it. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with other people. You can do it on paper. I recommend writing it down. And there's a lot of different variations of brainstorming and ways to do it. But basically, you just sit down and you start writing stuff down. You start throwing things up, or you grab a whiteboard with a group of people that know what the problem is. So if I were to sit down with my team and say, all right, we need to make an extra $5,000 a month so we can do this summit, we would get out a whiteboard and everybody would just start shooting ideas. The most important thing is to not judge the ideas, not think about the quality of the ideas, not think about the probability or possibility of the ideas. Just anything goes. I guess that's it. Anything goes when we're brainstorming. So our action item today is to come up with 10. I know people are like, oh my God, it's a lot. When I'm coaching somebody, I make them come up with 100 possible alternatives. And you can usually knock off 10, 20, 30 pretty quickly. But when you start getting to 90, 91, 92, you really have to open up and look for the infinite possibilities. You have to look for what have other people done to solve this particular problem or situation. So we're going to list off 10, and then our action item is to share just 3. It doesn't have to be 3 you're going to do, just 3. Now, why do I pick 3? Because so often we automatically defer to black or white, yes or no, one thing or the other, and we lock ourselves into 2 alternatives. And by forcing you to write down at least 3, I know that you're going to get over that hurdle, that black or white, 1 or 2 alternatives. It's this or the end of the world way of thinking that so often stops us from brainstorming. So if you can find a couple of other people to brainstorm with, get their help. If you can't, just do it yourself. I just did mine myself. I knocked off 10 things this morning that I can possibly do to get that $5,000 a month. And I'll share my 3 in the homework thread on the private group page. That's where I usually remember to share it. And I think I'm a day behind, but I've got my notebook, my handy dandy notebook with everything in it. I'm actually going to reach for it and show you. I actually have my homework. I do my homework. It's in here. And so sometimes I forget to put it on the computer, depending on how busy and crazy my day is going. So what have we got today? O for soap, financial soap. So why don't I share a couple of the possible things I could do? I'll look at my list, grab a magnifying glass, and share so you get an idea. Depending on what your chosen situation or story is, will depend on what your things are, right? So we know that mine's $5,000 a month, right? Well, what are some of the things I could do for $5,000 a month? Well, I could sell a challenge mastermind. I don't sell my challenges, but I could set up and do a mastermind group coaching program. I could do some challenge one-on-one coaching. I could do I could go out and coach some businesses or do some consulting for some businesses on change and challenge, like just COVID changes alone. I could help people with their sanitation or their quality aspects of that, writing their processes and procedures, auditing. Heck, I could go out and do audits for people on their COVID-19 changes, the things that they've done. I could develop a product or service to help people do a better job with their COVID-19 changes. What else have I got? I need my magnifying glass. Oh, sell a program to corporations on change management, challenge course, pivot for COVID webinar. I could easily knock off a webinar for people and then sell something on the back end of that. So that gives you an idea. So what you want to do is just brainstorm. Or I could invite people to my house and I could walk them through step by step the process of how to do a change or set up a challenge for themselves. There's all different things. But the sky's the limit. We could, I could rent a castle in Europe and I could have that's ridiculous. But I could, right? We could do anything. And that's the point, is not to judge the ideas, just throw them out there. And then we'll talk about what we do with those ideas tomorrow. All right, any questions? Hit me up. Share 3 things in the comments below that you could possibly do to help solve the problem and the situation and the story that you're telling yourself, or to get you from point A to point B. And guess what? You have to go all the way from point A to point C, just point A to point B. What is the next thing? The next thing we want to make sure happens. Any questions? Hit me up. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow. Bye. Have a great day.